Alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa
Recording in progress.
Excuse me for my voice. This week has been a very hectic week for myself and a few friends at the Kulliyyah because we were submitting results and having audits, so on and so forth. But Alhamdulillah, I would like to make a special greeting to Pak Habib, someone that I have encountered in a number of programs, but I think Pak Habib, we have not yet meet each other. Inshallah, I hope when the COVID is over, I will be able to visit Indonesia because I have many good friends in Indonesia. And Indonesia is the only country that I have yet to visit, except for Batam. So the only place that I have visited in Indonesia is Batam. So I'm looking forward to visit Indonesia, inshallah, after the COVID is over. Alright, so this week we are going to continue discussing a few items that I have listed regarded as challenges to Aqidah, and I will explain later in the end of this lecture how these issues are discussed under Aqidah, even though we will find that they are not directly related to theological issues. Yeah, I will sum that up in the end of my lectures. So let me go to religious pluralism. This is the philosophy of the day. Yeah, and people have been interpreting it in many ways, and I believe that some of you who have been exposed to religious pluralism and literature on religious pluralism, you may find that some people interpret religious pluralism as referring to the phenomenon of the diverse religion, of the existence of many religions. Yeah? That is a very literal meaning of religious pluralism. Yeah? Identifying and recognizing the existence of many religions, the coexistence of many religions. But if you study further, if you read further, you will find that religious pluralism is a theological concept in Christianity introduced by certain quarters among the Christian theologians, especially liberal theologians. Now, why these liberal theologians or Christian theologians offered that a theological concept which escalated into a philosophy? Because they have been encountering quite crucial problems in Christianity, problems related to the Christian theology herself. Yeah, so I put it here that religious pluralism has its root in Christianity. This is the original area or original area in which the idea of religious pluralism emerged. Yeah? Why? Because Christian theology, yeah, this is not from a Muslim perspective, yeah? This is from the Christian perspective as well, that Christian theology has been propagating exclusivism, yeah? Be it in Catholicism, or Protestantism, or the Orthodox Church. Why? Because they believe that you can only find salvation in Christianity and not in other religions. Yeah, so salvation can only be found if someone recognizes Jesus Christ. Yeah, and this has been the position in Christianity since 325 CE. Yeah, until 1965, the Vatican Council shifted her position to inclusivism. Yeah, what is inclusivism? That they start to believe that Christianity propagates the whole truth and other religions offer partial truth. So part of the teachings in other religions are correct, yeah, but the whole truth are found or is found in Christianity, or in that context, Catholicism alone. And later on, the idea of pluralism, religious pluralism, also escalates into Protestantism, especially when the Protestants started to dialogue with people of other religions in 1971. And in terms of the academic literature, the whole discourse of religious pluralism started off with scholars in religious studies, modern scholars in religious studies. So the issue with religious pluralism is that it propagates the idea of salvation to all religions. So the core of religion, according to pluralists, is that every religion talks about salvation. However, the idea of salvation is very pertinent and so-called exclusive idea to Christianity, because in Islam we do not speak of salvation in the way Christianity believes salvation. I would say that even in Hinduism, in Sikhism, and in Buddhism, salvation is not discussed in such a way, because in these three religions they discuss about karma samsara, about liberation. So to say that all religions speak about salvation is misleading as far as Christian theology is concerned. So I would say that religious pluralism is a Christian theology in trying to understand the phenomenon of many religions, in trying to understand, this is the key word, the plural truth claims of religions. Because some liberal Christians could not accept the fact that religions other than Christianity and followers of these religions are condemned just because they do not believe in Jesus Christ, but they have been a very, devoted people with regard to their religion. So they could not make sense how these good people in other religions will be condemned. So therefore, these pluralists started to develop a theology that fits for everybody else. And because of that, this gives a lot of problems to Islam, because we believe that religions can coexist. Religions, many religions can coexist. In terms of their existence, we believe that they are part and parcel of Allah's creation. This is something that we cannot change. This is His design. This is His grand design, because He wants us to understand, to find Islam based on our understanding, not because of we inherit the faith from our parents, or not because it is simply a tradition. But then in Islam, we make a very clear position that Islam is the right belief and others are misleading belief, but they can coexist. And this position is called as Tawhidic. And because Islam is Tawhidic, Muslims should not behave in exclusive way, or we should not, or Muslims should not embrace exclusivism in the sense that we take the position of Christianity in such a way that all people who are not Muslims will go to hell, even though Allah gave this criteria, but we cannot single out people or personal that this, like for example, one single person who is not Muslim and say you are going to hell, because we are not playing the role of Allah. Muslims have to think that men from the very beginning were Muslims. This is the covenant that every man has been taken when he was created. In Surah Al-A'raf, verse 161 or 165. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa idh akhadha rabbuka min bani adama min zuhurihim dhurriyyatahum wa yashhadahum ala anfusihim qala alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala shahidna. This is Tawhid Rububiyah. Remember, we learned this, right? And then when men come to this world and they follow the religion of their parents, they follow the religions of their context, but they are in the position to look for the truth, and Muslims in that regard have the responsibilities to call or to invite others to the right belief. Therefore, there is da'wah. So this is Tawhidic perspective. Yeah. And just now I mentioned about Tawhid Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, Al-Asma' wa As-Sifat. It is true that other people in general, or mankind in general, including the non-living being, they are Muslims from the very beginning. Kullu mauludin yuladu alal fitrah. So now the responsibilities of Muslim is not to exclude others, but to bring others in this rahmatan lil alamin. How do we bring people into this religion of rahmatan lil alamin? We have to do lots of da'wah. That is the role of Muslim. So lots of da'wah to introduce Allah as the only God, uluhiyah, and to introduce Allah with all his attributes and characteristics, al-asma wa as-sifat. And this is the role of Aqidah, the science of Aqidah. Yeah. And not only that we want men to know who Allah is, but we want also men to understand the extent of relationship man has towards Allah, the extent of relationship man has towards mankind and towards other beings, yeah, other creation in this world, and to understand what is the role of man in this world, where man is going, where man come from. So this is Tawhidic, and Tawhidic perspective rejects religious pluralism. Yeah. Of course, I can discuss more because this is my area of expertise. I wrote a thesis and I have published a book on this title, but hopefully perhaps next time, if we can be given another opportunity to discuss about religious pluralism, I am more than willing to share my point of view, my discussion on religious pluralism. Okay, so I've discussed one form of extremism, and this week, this time I'm going to discuss another form of extremism, where I do not regard what I have discussed earlier as extremism, but I will explain to you soon. Yeah? So today we are going to talk also about extremism and terrorism. Yeah. So first of all, it is important for us to understand, in the sense that we have discussed about the metaphysics of Islam, the items that are related to this metaphysics. But it is also important for us to understand that Islam provides a balanced perspective of everything. Yeah, I use the word balance, or if you also want to relate it better, the word middle, the word moderation, the word balance can explain what we mean as the middle way, or wasatiyah. Yeah, this idea or this principle and notion of wasatiyah is very pertinent for us to understand the Aqidah of Islam. Why the Aqidah of Islam cannot be understood if we take an extreme perspective in understanding reasoning, in understanding revelation. We have to strike a balance between the two. We have to reconcile between the two. You know, one of the best example would be, especially in the context of Aqidah, theological issues, we discussed about al-ayat al-mutasyabihat. The verses that speak about Allah has limbs. Yeah, Allah has limbs. Allah seems to have limbs just like creations. Allah has faces, and Allah sit down on the throne. Allah has hand. So how do we understand these verses? And we have seen that in the course of Muslim history, the Hanbalis seems to take a very literalist position. He understood yad as yad, and he did not want to interpret. Say that yad, hand is hand, so that's it. And well, we believe that Ahmad Ibn Hanbal understand very well what he means, and he declined to interpret hands because he was not inclined into taking the discourse of Greek philosophy into the question of Aqidah. Why? Because we have to remember that the Greek philosophers were extreme rationalist scholars. Some of them fall into skeptical idea about religion. So this is what Ahmad ibn Hanbal wanted to avoid during his time, especially he believed that he wants to retain the original understanding of Islam. So I would say that in his context, he has rightly interpreted the verses based on what he thought that is more safer to the Aqidah of Muslim. Yeah, but also we have also to understand that to a certain point there are Muslims who needs more explanation, especially when Islam has expanded to other parts of the world where the people in that context are used to understand God with limbs, with outlooks that human, and they are not familiar with the idea of God that is abstract. See, for example, we talk about Allah who can see but does not have eyes like human do. So some people cannot make sense of this. So the interpretations of the Mu'tazilites would serve this type of understanding. Yeah, so the Mu'tazilites try to interpret the word eyes or the word yad, basar for eyes and yad for hands, as say for example his power. Yeah, because then the word power is more appealing to this type of people who have been exposed to the idea of God, like the Romans understand God in the forms of creations, kan? The sun, the moon, the rocks, the trees. So they cannot understand God in abstract terms. So the Mu'tazilite helps to explain to them what it means when in Islam Allah says that He sits down on the throne. Is He sitting down like all of us, like human beings, like animals? No. Okay, so this type of interpretations fit to a certain context. But then Imam al-Ash'ari and a number of Imam of Aqidah after him try to reconcile between the two to address to the problems encountered by Muslims who could not accept the literal interpretation of Hanabalites, and the liberals. I would use the word liberal in a very very literal meaning here. The liberal interpretation of the Mu'tazilite. So the Ash'arites serve as a mediating ground to provide the Muslims how to make sense of these two extreme positions, and how do we try to strike a balance between the two. So he subscribed to reasoning as well as he subscribed to the traditional understanding of revelation. So he said, yes, Allah says He has hands, He has eyes, but then His hands and eyes are bila kaifa. We do not know how it looks like, because this has been explained by Himself, by Allah Himself in the Quran. Mukhalafatuhu lil hawadith. He is different from His creation. So when He has it, he says that He has eyes. His eyes is different from the way how the eyes of the makhluk are. Even the eyes of man and the eyes of a fly is different. So this line of differences is understandable, is logical. Yeah, and also Islam provides a middle position between extreme spiritualism and extreme materialism or literalism. What is extreme spiritualism and extreme materialism in the context of a religious understanding or belief system? I will take this in a very simple way. Now, if you look at Judaism, for example, Yeah, Judaism takes the scriptures in a very literal meaning. Yeah, they understand the text very literally. Yeah, um, and that has also influenced the way they understand religion. Yeah, so for example, they understand the word Sabbath in the notion of Sabbath in the Torah. Yeah, so the word Sabbath explain about the seventh day. Yeah, they regard it the seventh day, the day whereby God rests after He creates everything. So because of that, you know, that day is meant for every Jews to worship God. So that Sabbath day is the day to worship God. Yeah? But they went to the extent of taking it literally that on Sabbath day, one or a Jew should not do anything. You should not go to work. Yeah? You should not help people if people are dying. No, this is the example given in the Bible. Yeah? That if someone is sick, so you should not. I mean, you cannot help the person. Yeah? If he is dying, you cannot do anything because that day is specifically for you to worship God. Yeah? And they also take very literal interpretation of many practices in life, like for example in the diet, in their diet, do not consume blood, so that's why they have kosher, because they are not supposed to take meat with blood. When well we know that um, that is supposed to take metaphorically instead of literally, but that's how it is. The rabbis or the scholars have been interpreted the text, and this is the reason why Prophet Isa alayhi salam was sent to the Jews to correct the way they understand religion. Yeah. um and when Prophet Isa alayhi salam came from the seerah of the prophets, yeah, he tried to bring the Jews, or I would say Bani Israel in that time, to come back to the spirit of religion. What religion wants for men to acquire in addition to the understanding of the text. So if you are familiar with the Bible, you may find that Isa alayhi salam or Jesus Christ in that context have been calling people to have mercy, to cast love to the layman, yeah, to the so-called Samaritan, yeah, to the people who are not into the to the higher hierarchy in the society, because the society was so hierarchical during that time. Yeah, so if you are in the lower rank, you are not regarded as reliable or useful in the society. But Prophet Isa alayhi salam communicate the message of religion to all, including those who are not Christian, those who are not Jews, those who are not Bani Israel. So he spoke to the Roman, he spoke to the Greeks as well, and this is what makes Prophet Isa alayhi salam controversial, especially when he tried to bring people to understand what Sabbath day is all about. Yeah, what is a diet? A good diet is all about in the religion. Okay, so now Islam came and stressed that spirituality is also important. Understanding the text is also important, but you have to strike a balance. So try to avoid to take the verses in a very literal manner, just like what I have discussed just now. It is good not to take the word yad and basar in a very literal meaning, because you will not be able to understand the spirit of the Quran. Yeah. So yes, that is what I can offer at this point of time with regard to spiritualism and materialism. Yeah? And because of that, you find also in Islam we have not only Aqidah, we have also fiqh, we have also akhlaq, and akhlaq is normally discussed under tasawwuf. So spiritualism is also important, fiqh is also important, and Aqidah is also important. Yeah? And then realism and idealism. So we appreciate reality, but we do not take that reality is only the thing that can be perceived with our senses and can be attained with our logical explanation. So those those that are beyond our physical senses, that we cannot make sense, that we cannot reason out, according to realism as a philosophy of understanding, according to them, is not comprehensible. We cannot attain knowledge. Say for example, you are talking about akhirah, kan? The philosophy of realism cannot accept akhirah because akhirah is not real. Yeah. Okay, and idealism, in the sense that we go to the extent that we philosophize and everything to the extent that we cannot come to a point that is comprehensible to everyone. Yeah. For example, maybe you have encountered this in Aristotelian ethics. What is it called? Creation ex nihilo. This is idealism. Because this tasalsul that been created by, say, I was saying, how do I give this example, that at certain point there must be a creator that creates. So who is this creator? There must be the creator. So it cannot carry on and on and on, yeah? To the extent that we do not know who is this the ideal being. I'm trying to recall the Arabic term for it, and some of you may have known this term. You can type in the chat box. Yeah, al-mabda'ul ula. The first principle that brings creations into reality. Yeah, but then Aristotelian idealism could not come to that point. Yeah, so Islam is not like that. Yeah, the Aqidah of Islam also tell us that at certain point there must be explanation to our question. So we cannot carry on, continue living in our doubt. Remember, I've been discussing about skepticism, relativism. Yeah, cannot carry on and on in our doubt. They are explanations. They are answers to our question. Yeah, and we are not only finding a definite answer in that sense, we are also finding meanings. I think this is also what makes Islam very interesting, because meaning is beyond the arrangement of text. Meaning is what you read from the text, but it is felt in your soul, in your heart. Yeah. So when we talk about meanings, it brings us the explanation that is comprehensive, or from the perspective of epistemology, we call it jami' wa mani. When you have that meaning, whatever concept that confront that meanings will be rejected, and whatever concept that fits to that meaning is acceptable. This is jami' wa mani. This is the level of aqidah that a Muslim should always strive towards to. That you find meanings that give you its meaning. This is what Prophet Ibrahim said to Allah, hatta tatma'innal qulub. So when we understand Aqidah, we look for meanings because we want that our soul to be at peace. That's sakina. After all, this is the state of the soul of which we hope to meet Allah in the hereafter. Remember, Allah says that, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainnah, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. So it is okay to question, it's okay to try to understand, but we have to find meanings. Now, extremism is ghulu. The Quran used the word ghulu. And extremism in the Quran is not only talking about what we understand from extremism today, kan, these people who wage war, the jihadis, so on and so forth. But ghulu can also exist in the form of the way we understand things. Like in the Quran, it stated very clearly that the Christians is regarded as ghulu. Why? Because they take Jesus as God. They take Jesus as the Son of God. What is the best lesson of this? The best lesson is that when we believe in religion, we have to believe in such way that we have substantial knowledge that support our faith. We cannot fall into, how do you call that in this context? We cannot fall into fanaticism. I'll come to this point later on. Anyway, extremism has no single cause. It's a very complex position. It's a very complex phenomenon. So it will require us to discuss a lot of issues if we want only to understand what extremism is, because it has political, social, psychological, intellectual, and many items that lead to extreme position, someone extreme position. Yeah. And Al-Qaradawi described that the main characteristic. So how do we know if someone is extreme? Yeah? Someone is extreme if he is fanatic to one view, one opinion, and believe that other opinions are not right. Yeah, so like he simply put off other opinion without substantial justification, without hujjah. I think this is very important. If you can disagree with someone, but make sure that you have valid hujjah. So you have to find this hujjah again and again until you are firm. Hatta tatma'innal qulub. Then only you can disagree with someone. And of course, disagree with respect. Okay, now why extremism is wrong? Because it's slanting to the left or right, contradictory to the principle of wasatiyah. Why? Because wasatiyah is a position where someone can be as just as possible, as adil as possible. Someone can be in the position of meeting the demand of his fitrah, and someone is possible to try to strike a balance between the different positions. Okay. Now, is it true that this extreme position that we have today has its root in theological schools? I want to address this issue since we are talking about Aqidah. Okay? So there were some Muslims who say that all these extreme positions having its root in Khawarij. And I forgot to put one thing. Another extreme school relate to the Mu'tazilah. So some of them use the word Neo-Mu'tazilites, the modern Mu'tazilites, Neo-Kharijites, Neo-Khawarij. Are these words right? I will conclude in the end later. But for this at this point of view, at this perspective or at this point, I would like to say that they are opinion like this, and therefore they associate this group such as Takfiri, Jihadis, Salafis, Wahhabis. I'm so sorry, I have to use this term, because this is for the purpose of explanation. Some of you may not agree with this term. Well, I can understand why, but let me also explain how this term emerged and what they are interpreted as. acts. Yeah. So for example, takfir. Takfir has been associated with the takim. I believe you are familiar with the idea of takim, or the story of takim, story of Prophet Ali alayhi salam and his friends, companions, yeah, who have disputes with Muawiyah. Yeah. They were in kind of war, and then Muawiyah lured them, or maybe I shouldn't use that word. Muawiyah persuaded them to come into a negotiation, but unfortunately Sayyidina Ali lost in that negotiation because of Muawiyah's negotiation skill is better off. Yeah? So what has happened after that, a group of people who in support of Sayyidina Ali withdraw themselves and blame Sayyidina Ali for accepting tahkim. Yeah? So they shifted into another extreme position. Before they were all out for Sayyidina Ali, but after that tahkim, they were all out against Sayyidina Ali and regarded Sayyidina Ali, Muawiyah, yeah, as sinful. Yeah? And this has escalated into theological question of grave sin. Al-Murtakibul Kabirah. People who committed grave sin, and according to this group, that Muslim cannot afford to commit grave sin, because if they committed grave sin, they will be sentenced to hell. Some of them take a very extreme position. Even Muslims cannot commit small sin, because he will become fasik. Well, also later in the history, we know that such a terminology like Darul Islam and Darul Harb. This is the fiqh of that day. Of course, today we do not have this explicit Darul Islam and Darul Harb. The context of today is much different from in the past, because we have been colonized and we have been following the different set of governance. Anyway, some Muslims who want to bring this categorization into the current context, and therefore they use the word Darul Harb, and they are against this state who are not Muslims, calling them kafir, and then the word takfir emerge from this Darul Harb. Kafir who are enemies to the Muslim, and you have to fight against them, and Muslims who are in support of this group of people, and then the word takfir has been used even in a very larger context. Okay. There's also jihadis. We know that the word jihad, Muslims know very well what jihad means, but this word has been hijacked, referring to the Muslims who wage war against the non-Muslims, and we know that this word is very misleading. But the jihadis have been propagated, portrayed as extreme. And the word Salafi, mashallah. The word Salafi, the meaning of Salafi, the original meaning of Salafi is very, very noble, because it talks about a group of people who wants to emulate the earlier generation of Muslims. What is wrong about emulating the earlier generation of Muslims? This is what we're supposed to do. You have to understand Islam the way Prophet Muhammad SAW understand Islam, the way the companions understand Islam. But the word Salafis have been associated as extreme position, given certain meaning that these Salafis were trying to portray Islam that is rigid. Quite unfortunate that there are some Muslims also who call themselves Salafi and portray such position. And also, but anyway, if you read the literature, you'll find that the word Salafi is the most misrepresented, misinterpreted, and very abstract, and provides a very ambiguous meaning. And there also the word Wahhabi. Well, when I learned Imam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab during my undergraduate study, I have very high regards for Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Why? Because he was the one who tried to bring Muslims to the correct understanding of Islam, in the time when Muslims started to believe in superstitions, started to take the secondary, tertiary information about Islam, started to adopt blind ideas, imitation about Islam, instead of trying to understand Islam back to the sources. So that was a spirit that what Abdul Wahab wanted to bring. When the society slanted to either to the right or to the left, there will be a thinker, a reformer who comes to help the Muslims to come back to the middle. This is very beautiful about Islam. Whenever we are slanting to the right, slanting to the left, Allah will send someone to help us to come back to the middle. So therefore, we should give ourselves the chance to listen from the two positions and to find the answer. How are we going to strike a balance between these two positions and avoid from charging this group is blasphemous, that group is blasphemous, because that is not our role. Our role is to find the meanings of Iman, of Aqidah to ourselves, so we can protect our Aqidah. Alright? Okay, so I will skip from this, and then, well, I must say that, mashallah, Muhammad Abdul Wahab actually called the Muslims to understand Islam in a very good way. Understand the Quran, yeah? And try to find meanings in the Quran and the Sunnah, yeah? Go back to the teaching of Islam. And he rejected funny practices in Shiism. Yeah? He rejected the things that the Prophet did not teach us. Yeah? Okay. Okay, now, terrorism. What is terrorism? I believe everybody is familiar with terrorism, but this, what we have seen on the slides, basically the definition given by the Islamic Faith Council for IC 2002. So terrorism is not only referring to Osama bin Laden, for example, or any Muslims who believe that non-Muslims are not supposed to be around in this world. Yeah? But terrorism also can take place in the way one's behave. Yeah, so you can see that, for example, any act or every act of violence, yeah, can be regarded as terrorism. Yeah, this is the original meaning of terrorism. And why terrorism occurs? This has something to do with Aqidah. Terrorism occurs when we are fanatic. And then not only that we are fanatic to a certain view, but also if we are fanatic because for no reason, we simply follow. When actually we do not know. That's why I have the opportunity to discuss with one of my good friends who is an expert in the study of terrorism. And he said that many who fall into terrorism or this movement, they will actually have very little understanding about Islam, or they have committed grave sin in their life, and they were told that if you join this terrorist movement, so your sin will be forgiven. If you kill non-Muslim, you will enter Jannah. Yeah, so it's very unfortunate that they didn't find a murshid teacher, a teacher that can teach them the right way, and they do not try to find the right understanding of Islam, so they are driven by their ignorance. So this is what I wanted to highlight. So our fanaticism and blind fanaticism can drive us away from being a balanced person. Yeah. So now the problem with this extremism and terrorism is that most of the people who follow this position, who are into this position, they seem to play the role of God, because it seems that they know what will happen to this person in their afterlife. Like I said just now, you single out people or you're going to hell. And what's more, if they are killing people, so they are acting like God, you know, ending the life of someone as if they know these people's destiny. I think if we understand the story of Khidir in the Quran, remember the story of Prophet Khidir and Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when Allah asked Prophet Musa to learn from Prophet Khidir. It's a very good lesson for us to understand that we do not know the destiny of others, but we have to concern about all this. Okay, finally, now what I want to say is that all these extreme movements that we have discussed in this course, they are not theological sectarians, and they are not deviant in the full sense of meaning. So their position may affect their theological ideas and perspective, but they are not theological. So why? And their position, even though some say, oh, resembling Kharijat, resembling Tazilites, but they are not a theological position in a very strict sense. Yeah, so they do not represent specific traditional theological school, not even a theological school in Islam. Now, extremism is not only a phenomenon in Islam, extremism is also a phenomenon in other traditions. Christian fundamentalism, for example. Okay, and finally, the problem with these people who claim themselves extremists and terrorists, they were good Muslims. I mean, they do their fundamentals very well. But the problem with them is the gap in their interpretations of the fundamentals. Now, the best book that we can refer to if you want to understand theological sectarians would be Shahristani Al-Milal wa Al-Nihal, because Shahristani really give the category of theological school and how he explain and justify why certain theological schools are not right from the perspective of Islam. So this is the final message that I want to highlight for this course, that I would like to say that it's our responsibility to understand Aqidah, so it gives meaning to ourselves, and we can differ with other, but that has to be with hujjah, and we avoid slanting to the left and to the right. Yeah, we want to strike a balance. And all these extreme phenomena today should not be affiliated with the theological school of Islam in the past, because the theological school in the past, they have their own context. Yeah? And anyway, this extreme position, even though they are not theological school, full-fledged theological school, but their interpretations of theology may affect Aqidah. All right. So thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haslina. Maybe I will give you 5 minutes for you to wrap up, give the word of advice to all the participants based on the 6-week lecture. We wish welcome to Dr. Haslina.
Okay, Alhamdulillah, I am so fortunate to be in this session to share my perspective, and we have learned about for 6 weeks we have learned about the importance of us to have the right epistemology. First of all, the right epistemology to understand Aqidah. Yeah? So we know that sometimes we may not realize that our ways of understanding, of taking reasoning, taking empirical evidences, or even taking the text of the Quran and the Sunnah may not be helping us to understand Aqidah. Say for example, if we are too logical oriented, or we are too empirical oriented, or we are too literal oriented. Yeah? So in the course of finding meanings in Aqidah, we have to get as much information as possible and use the right tools and take the right methodologies. Yeah, and of course we follow the mazhab of Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Yeah, Imam al-Ash'ari, I mentioned in my lecture, he never recognized himself as the great Imam. Yeah, but this is a message that I've learned from Almarhum Professor Irfan, my supervisor. He said that Imam al-Ash'ari never boasts that he's the founder of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, but his position is appreciated by the people after him, by the ulama after him, and this is the consensus of the ummah. So the right position of Islam is followed by the consensus of the ummah. People naturally, by fitrah, we follow the right meaning of Islam. So the right meaning of Islam will make us stick to our fitrah. This is important. Stick to our fitrah and give meaning to us. Understand Islam in the right way. Remember, just now I said about taking all the means to knowledge, and use the right methodology, and do not fall into fanaticism. Get all the evidences. We can disagree with people, but do not disagree out of sentiments. Disagree only if we have the right hujah. And last, from Dato, I want to say this. At this age where everybody can be a mufti on the social media, everybody tend to be a mufti in the TikTok, in the Facebook, in the Twitter, in the Instagram. But most importantly, whenever we encounter some controversial issues, the first thing to do is to take a pause, try to find the answers before you respond in the social media. All right. Thank you so much, and I hope good day and good learning experience to all of you. And I'm so sorry for any shortcomings. Over to you, Dato'. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.